If you're really a hormone connoisseur, if the bill fits, I'm not judging. And what you don't get is that your toxic burden matters a lot. You want hormones, you got to get your metabolic health in order. You want hormones, you got to be strength training. You got to be sweating. You got to be sleeping. If you are of fertile age trying to conceive, this really matters to men as well. Of course, it matters to our long-term health. It matters to our cardiovascular health. It matters to our metabolic health. It matters to a lot of things. On this episode of the Dr. Tina Show, we're going to talk about the not so sexy topic of toxins and what they are doing to your hormones. Everybody wants to talk about hormones. Everybody wants to get on the HRT. The black box warnings have come off. Everybody's very excited. But when you put estrogen into a toxic soup, if you will, things don't always go well. So we're going to talk about it today. All right. So how did this start? I was watching a very well-known influencer. She's got a very large platform, beautiful, smart woman. I shall not name names. She is not a doctor. She is not a health expert. She has just built her platform around the conversation of menopause. And she's got a book and podcasts and all that. And I watched, I follow her and I love her content. And I watched one of her reels the other day and she was getting ready on the reel. And she has very dark dyed hair, which is always a red flag for me. That's a whole podcast I'm going to do another day I'm working on, but the darker the dye, the more toxic it is. Okay, let's just leave it at that. I am not judging. You can go back and look at pictures of me from just a few short years ago, and I had long, dark hair. Very dark, very dyed. Had to dye it every 2 weeks to cover up this silver. So I get it. Not judging, no judgment. She also has nails, and she wears a full face of makeup every time I see her. And so I know she's wearing makeup frequently. Again, I'm not judging. I just am talking about toxins here, okay? We're talking about toxic burden. I'll explain why in a moment. But then she lost me when she doused herself in perfume. Before she walked out the door, I was like, oh, she doesn't get it. And again, no judgment, but she doesn't get it. Like, I would have patients come in who were going in circles with their hormones and they were eating super clean and they were hitting the gym and doing all the things. They were sauning, but often they were sauning with breast implants in and they were just doused in perfume. And we had a no fragrance policy in my clinic because that is how toxic and triggering fragrances are to people's systems. And not even essential oils. I know those are great, but the overwhelming sense of things was just not it for my clinic. And they would have fake nails and they would have a massive toxic burden. And if you're really a hormone connoisseur of sorts, if you're really a hormone guru, any of you listening out there, any of you big influencers listening, if the bill fits, I'm not judging, but you don't get it. And what you don't get is that your toxic burden matters a lot, a whole lot. And I'm going to explain why. So I say this all with love, by the way, not judging. I have enough people who hate on me. I don't need more. But if you're dyeing your hair super dark every 2 weeks, you have fake nails and you wear lots of makeup and you douse yourself in perfume and you're really trying to keep your hormones in line, you're going down a very convoluted path. So I'll leave it at that. All right. Well, now let's throw some alcohol on top of that. Right? So what can we do? We can do a lot of things. I'm going to get to that at the end of this episode. So hang in there. We will get to what can you do. I first want to preface, I have been talking a lot about air quality lately. And I did an episode just last week or the week before about toxins and your hormones as far as what they are leading to. And it is disastrous. It was just study after study after study that was disastrous. So go back and listen to that because the air you're breathing, it was air toxins, air pollution, and your hormones. And the end result of that is disastrous for men, for women, for young people, for older people, for the fertility and the future of the human race. Air pollution is a bad thing. And I highly encourage you to check out a high quality air filter. I prefer the Jasper. I love them for a myriad of reasons. We'll talk about it more at the end, but you can save with my discount code. It's an affiliate link. I'm a huge fan. But trust me, go back and listen to that episode. Just go back and listen to that episode. So I got a couple questions after the pod came out and people said, well, what are the toxins doing to our hormones? Like, how does that work, right? Like, what's the mechanism? And so I want to explain that today because the mechanism is xenoestrogens. And back to where I started with this whole like explosion of HRT, explosion of interest in hormones. If you put hormones into a toxic soup of a body, the estrogen doesn't go down the pathways we prefer, and things get real messy real fast. And so estrogen is the last hormone I give people. I have a whole hierarchy of hormones, and I talk about this in Module 3 of my GLP-1 Done Right University. This is the last month you can get it. This episode's coming out in December 2025. I am closing up access to that course as of December 31st. So I might do something different with the material in there, but I'm closing it down. I am tired of being the GLP-1 girl. I'm going to figure out what I want to do when I'm a grown up, and I'll come back in 2026 with something that fills my heart up. But right now, that ain't it. So you have access to purchase until December 31st. If you already own the course, there are hundreds of you, you get access for life. So don't worry about that. I'm not taking the course away from everyone. I'm not taking it down. It's just not going to be available for sale. There is a very, very epic module in there all about hormones. And I explain my hierarchy. And the reason estrogen comes last is because we need everything working. I will not give estrogen to a woman who isn't pooping every day, for instance. I will not give estrogen to a woman who is showing a glommed up liver on labs. I will not give estrogen to a woman who is not living the lifestyle that we need her to live in order for her to actually clear the estrogens appropriately. So your toxic bucket and your toxic burden, it matters a lot. And I say bucket because we all have a different bucket. We all were kind of born with a different bucket. We all have a different size bucket. Our bucket might be fuller or less full depending on where we were raised, what our toxic exposure was as children. Lots of reasons. What our genomic profile is, what our MTHFR status is. Like there's a lot of things that go into this, and what our other comorbidities are, how active we are, how metabolic we are, how often do we sweat, how stressed out are we, how well we sleep. I mean, all of these things contribute to it's not just exposure. That's the most obvious, is to avoid exposure. And I'm going to go through this with you in a rationale I'll bring it all together for you. But there are so many things that we come to the table with that we don't just slap an estrogen patch on and hope for the best. Okay, that's not how I do it in my clinic. That's not how I do it. I go into my entire clinical rationale inside GLP-1 Done Right University. It is a whole course on how I go through the process from beginning to end with my patients. And so you can get my brain there because I'm not taking any new patients from the general public. So that is it. And I explain all of this really in detail there and some of the things you can do about it. But we're going to go through the basics today. I'm going to talk to you guys like I talk to my patients, all right? I'm not going to make it too complicated. This isn't a science class. I just want to explain this in terms that you can understand, and hopefully you can turn around and share this information with the women in your life that you love, and the men for that matter. If you are of fertile age trying to conceive, this really matters to men as well. Of course, it matters to our long-term health. It matters to our cardiovascular health. It matters to our metabolic health. It matters to a lot of things. People who have high toxic burdens have a lot of other comorbidities that go along with that. But if you're trying to conceive, like, this matters a lot. If you are hoping to go onto HRT, or you're on HRT and you are a toxic hot mess, this matters a lot. So that bucket can get overfilled. And it's really not, my bucket's different than your bucket. It's different than someone else's bucket. My bucket is not great, but it can get overfilled. And then weird things start happening and things start going down the wrong pathway. And, it's not great. So, and when I say wrong pathway, I mean pathways that like to grow, the big C. So this matters. And I'm not hearing this talked about much in this whole hormone conversation. This is why I and I will die on this hill, I firmly believe there is no way to effectively and safely do hormone replacement therapy. And this is personal and clinical experience. I firmly do not believe there's any way to do it safely and effectively without an integrative approach, period. And what do I mean by that? I mean, all the things. You got to do all the things. I lay out all the things inside the course, but it's all the things I talk about that you hear me talk about to no end, right? You want hormones, you got to get your metabolic health in order. You want hormones, you got to be strength training. You got to be sweating. You got to be sleeping. You got to be mitigating your stress. You got to be eating a nutrient-dense diet. You got to be hitting your protein macros. You got to be getting some sun and setting your circadian rhythm. There's a whole lot more that goes into this besides slapping on a patch. All right. And unfortunately, and I'm not going to digress too much, but a lot of people are actually getting prescribed the estrogen pill. That is not a great idea, in my opinion. Really hard on the liver. Goes through first pass in the liver. Much higher propensity for blood clots, the concerns everybody seems to have about estrogen. And if someone's going into this with a crappy liver, then that's not great. And a massive percentage of the US population and the world, I was doing my CEUs today, my year-end CEUs to get my license renewed. And I was going through a whole module on an article on fatty liver, which is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, basically. It's fatty infiltrate into the liver. We used to call it fatty liver. Now they call it metabolic disease associated liver disease. It keeps changing names. What it is fatty infiltrate in the liver because of metabolic dysfunction and toxicity load. But it's such a massively high amount of people. I would say that most people that I run labs on, I see some compromise in the liver. It's shocking. It's shocking how many people have it. It's shocking how much it's been normalized over the past many decades, probably because a lot of doctors themselves have fatty liver. It's gotten very normalized. And patients would come in with their labs from other doctors, and the note from the doctor would say, here's your lab markers. Everything looks fine. You're good to go for another year. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, hold up. I did a whole podcast about this. I will not berate this topic. It's very important. Please go listen to that podcast. It'll be in the show notes. But with that many people walking around with fatty liver, it tells me that their liver is not clearing things. And this contributes greatly to cardiovascular disease, this metabolic disease-associated liver disease. And then they're throwing oral estrogen at it. It's So where do we start? Xenoestrogens. Xenoestrogens are fake estrogens. They are what toxins mimic. So a ton of toxins in our environment mimic estrogen. This is why so many people, when you hear the conversation around estrogen dominance, a lot of people are walking around with physiologic estrogen dominance, and it has nothing to do with estrogen they're making in their body. It is because they are so toxic that these xenoestrogens have glommed onto their estrogen receptors, and they are very hard to cleave off. They do not come off readily the way that a regular estrogen would. And so people are walking around with this xenoestrogen burden. And that varies, right, between exposures. But I'm very concerned about the young women today that I see in the TikTok trend of the 10 layers of serums and facial, creams and products, and then the 15 layers of makeup, and on it goes. And then they wash their face and they have clean skin for a second, and then they're putting on 15 more layers before they go to bed. And then they're putting on masks and all kinds of nonsense, and they've got nails, and and the hair dyes and the perfumes and fragrances, and that's not even what I'm going to get into about what's lurking in your home, which we're going to talk about in a minute. I'm preparing you. I laugh because I had an environmental medicine class. I think I mentioned it on the last podcast. The first hour would be like everything in your life that was killing you, and the second hour is what you could do about it. And there wasn't a lot you could do. And I will say that everybody seems to think we can get everything out. You can't. You just can't. Like, I think it's really false advertising for people to be saying that you can, do the EBU treatments, which is a blood filtration, and get out the microplastics. I go to these conferences, you guys. Like, this is not new stuff. I know it's new to a lot of you hearing about it, but there's no version where like plastic particulate that's lodged physiologically in a space just gets disrupted and carried on out because you decided to flush the line. I mean, we've all flushed lines, right? Like sometimes you got to send somebody into the sewer system with a brush and scrub it out. Sometimes we've got to go clean out pipes, and a lot of blood flows through our arteries. We still get clogs, right? So I'm not saying don't do EBU. I'm saying it's not as easy to get this stuff out as we want. And then there's solvents. There's a lot of solvents happening, and these solvents are a big part of this beauty industry. And solvents I don't know how to get those out. I know a lot of very well-known environmental medicine doctors, and they will tell you straight up, like getting solvents. I've been on shift with them. Getting solvents out isn't as easy. You can't get the mRNA out of you. I mean, we can't just detox this stuff with some supplements that, are sold from popular wellness companies. But that is a topic for another day. getting it out is difficult. So the first thing we have to do is avoid it. That is it. The number one rule in environmental medicine is avoidance, avoidance, avoidance. The number one rule is to not get exposed to it in the first place. So we cannot control that we live in a toxic planet. It's very toxic, you guys. And it is a toxic soup. Some places are worse than others. We can't control that. We can't control what our government does. We can't control what other governments do. We can't control what China's burning and polluting into the atmosphere. We can't control what India's doing. There are some countries creating a lot of pollution. We can't control it. I actually saw a graphic the other day, an infographic about the largest producers of pollutants in the world. And the Philippines was like, I think top by a leg. I mean, it was crazy. I was like, how is that little tiny country producing so much toxic burden? So I don't know. This is not what I obsess about, because this is the kind of thing that if you let it will make you crazy. And so you have to know. And so I'm telling you, but what can we do? We have to control the variables that we can control. That doesn't mean we throw all of our, favorite makeup away. It doesn't mean, we freak out. It means we go in baby steps, and there's some things we can do, and there's some things that we can't control. So I can't control what my neighbors are spraying around me. I can't control when I'm out on the farm in Oregon, what the fields are being sprayed with. I can't control those variables. I can't even control what's being sprayed in my own fields, because my husband runs the farm and I don't. And there's sometimes that he's got to kill the weeds. So I accept what the world is, and then I proceed accordingly. And so I am going to give you a long list of things that are inside your house that you need to be thinking about, and you pick and choose, and don't freak out and do them all at once. Just pick off one thing. I will use my best friend as an example. I have been riding her butt for decades at this point, and she's fully on board now, right? It took a while. Like, I came in and told her she had to throw all her pots and pans away at one visit. I came in and told her she had to throw away all her cleansers at another visit. I came in and told her she had to consider a whole new line of skincare, right? And there's some things she's not going to budge on, and there's other things that she will. I think what we can do is pick our battles and decide what we're going to engage with and what are we going to swap out in our houses. And we don't want to end up divorced. I remember the day that my ex-husband decided he was going to divorce me. I kid you not, he came home and I had all the pots and pans that were Teflon lined in a box. And I said, take these to the Goodwill. And he said that was the day that he decided that we were going to get divorced. So, it was not his jam. That's okay. He married a hairstylist who is, covered in toxins, I'm sure. I will say that my mom's a hairstylist, and that is a very toxic industry. Very toxic. I've taken care of a lot of very sick hairstylists. There's a heavy toxic burden. Why is this important? It's not just because of your hormones. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a second. But if you are having a hard time losing fat off your body, despite your best efforts, that is usually a sign of toxic burden, because the toxins will sequester in the fat, and that is where they are housed. And if the liver can't handle them, your body will not release them, meaning it will not release the fat. So for those of you who are on a weight loss journey, whether it's through GLP-1s or other things, if you are having a really hard time getting the fat off, the first thing to consider is, what is your toxic burden? And it's not, I don't even think, worth going through, a lot of expensive testing for. I think you can just assume that your liver is probably having a bit of a struggle bus time. And that's a good place to consider starting, because the fat won't come off because the liver can't handle the load of toxins that's in the fat. I'm not making this up, you guys. This is long been known. So things to consider. But these xenoestrogens, we could call them obesogens, we could call them diabesogens, we could call them xenodiabesogens. They've got the terminology is all out there. When I say xeno, it's not with a Z, it's Xeno. Go look it up, check it out. Xenoestrogens basically are, they're fake estrogens that in some cases irreversibly bind the estrogen receptor, and they're very difficult to get off. And then they tell the estrogen receptor to go, except it's not real estrogen. So that's not great. Some common sources are fragrances and perfumes, as I mentioned. That's a big one, guys. Just stop. I 100% would suggest people stop wearing perfume. The air fresheners, the Febreze, the air fresheners in the car, oh my goodness, those are the worst. You get into the Uber Blacks and there's like air fresheners everywhere. the colognes, and I see the young people with the Axe body spray. I don't know if that's a thing anymore. It was in my daughter's generation. It's so horrific. I'm just like, oh, your hormones and your reproductive abilities are being compromised. I just would ask young men, like, do you want to be fertile, when you're older? And they were like, yeah. I'm like, do you want everything to work right? And they're like, yeah. Because if a male is doused in xenoestrogens throughout their life, that is going to lead to a very, very low vitality. Young girls, which I don't know a young girl who doesn't have PCOS at this point. Like, it's so common. I'm going to blame xenoestrogens. I'm going to blame the toxic burden that is our life. And we accumulate them over our lifetime. So young people with the candles, the girls with the candles and the perfumes, and I know it's so big on social media, and I cringe. And I don't cringe in a judgy way. I cringe in a very concerned, like, oh Lord, help us and the human race. Plastics and vinyl, of course, the hair dyes. The darker the hair dyes, you guys, dark hair dye. There's a link between dark hair dye and bladder cancer. There's some speculation about dark hair dye and other cancers. That's the worst one. So if you're dyeing your hair dark, which I was doing, and I know a lot of people who are doing that, that's the big one to watch out for. Furniture off-gassing. This is huge. A lot of furniture is coming out of China. It's particle board. This is not a judgment on China, but I had a friend who lived there for years, and he's like, literally everything's fake here. Like everything. Like they just don't tell you what's going on. And so who knows what's in those adhesives in that particle board, but you bring a new particle. I think about my daughter. I remember when I bought her this whole bedroom set, and I built it all, or I had it built. I can't remember. And I brought it in, and I put it in her bedroom, and she was a toddler, and the whole thing was off-gassing. And I was like, oh my gosh. And it all had to go out in the garage for months before we could use it, before it was completely off-gassed. Brand new house builds, massive off-gassing. If you live in a brand new build, you are being off-gassed on like crazy for years. In fact, the environmental docs will tell you to buy a house that's like 10 years old. Because if it's too young, it's off-gassing. If it's too old, it's moldy. So you can't win, I know. Cleaning products, of course, that's an easy one, right? Like, what's the low-hanging fruit here? Perfumes and fragrances, candles and air fresheners. You don't need any of that stuff. Get one of those continuous spray bottles and they have glass ones even, plastic. We don't want plastics. Don't heat anything in plastics, please. That's a huge one, especially men going off. The men, whenever I would teach a man in my life this, they were a lot of blue-collar guys in my life, and they would go off to the job site and they would start sharing the information like, hey guys, you probably don't want to be reheating your food in your Tupperware container, your Ziploc container, right? The hard plastics. The squishier plastic is, the more toxic it is, just as a general rule. No plastics are good, period. But the squishier, the softer it is, the worse it is. BPA was developed as an estrogen. I mean, I don't know how weirder this whole storyline can get. Like, it was literally developed as like an estrogenic compound for that purpose, and they realized it made plastic soft and pliable, so that everything got soft. I mean, the more pliable and soft a plastic is, the much, much, much more concerned I am. So those little squeezy bottles that have all the little weird colored juices in them, that weird food dyes that kids are sucking down, like, that's just a estrogen tincture right there. So we can control that, right? We can control for those variables. We can control for how much plastic we bring in our house. We can buy old furniture, solid wood furniture, but even then, consider off-gassing it in your garage. Your cleaning products you can swap out for clean products. A lot of the companies are greenwashed, like Myers Clean Day. I know a lot of these companies are greenwashed, but do your research. Pesticides, obviously, we can avoid those as much as possible. Combustion byproducts. So if you're burning something, burn it outside, open the windows. They are ubiquitous, they are low dose, and they are chronic, and they add up. There are, let's see, what else? Obviously, your makeups, your personal products. I'll tell you something about Jasper. I know my product is toxic when I go, my hair products, when I go to apply heat to my hair after the products are on my hair, and the Jasper goes off, because I have a Jasper in my bathroom, and I have one in my bedroom, and I have one everywhere, in every room of the house. But when the products are either being applied to my hair, or I am applying heat to my hair and the products are vaporizing or whatever, combusting, the Jasper goes off. And that's how I know I'm using a toxic product. So there's a lot to it. Let's see. Okay, so some other sources, obviously, Essential oil diffusers, consider that I don't care if it's natural. If you are burning a candle, I don't care if it's soy or if it's natural. If you are burning a candle, you have combustion. When you have combustion, you have particulate matter that is probably not great to be breathing in. So burn them a lot less if you can help it. Do not burn crappy candles with paraffin in particular. Paraffin is bad news. Benzene rings, not good. Perfumes and colognes, essential oil diffusers, air fresheners and plugins, Febreze, I said. Any odor masking spray. I went into a house. I'm shopping for a house for my parents. And I went in the other day and they had one of those glass decanters with those wick sticks that come out the top. And it's all beautiful and decorative, but it had the most foul smelling air freshener smell. And I was like, oh God, I don't even think I can get this out of the house if I bought it. So I can't buy this house. Because Lord knows what other artificial scents are all over that place. The laundry stuff, you guys, the fabric softeners are a big no. The dryer sheets are a huge no. The laundry scent beads, those stupid downy, oh, please. If you like your hormones, do not put those stuff in your clothes and wear it around all day. Just don't wear plastic clothes either. Every time you wash and dry your plastic clothes, i.e. all of your polyester clothes, all of your athleisure wear, all of that stuff, it is coating your dryer with the BPA and the plastic and the phthalates and all the bad things. Obviously, aerosol products, hairsprays, all the aerosol hair products. But the worst one, the one that kills me that I keep seeing is these women with their setting sprays. The makeup setting sprays are a huge thing right now. And I do use a setting spray on occasion, but not an aerosolized one. I don't use hardly anything aerosolized, not even dry shampoo. Do you know how they get it to be aerosolized and shoot out of the can with really toxic stuff, really, really toxic stuff, and butane. And these women are spraying butane on their face directly into their nostrils. It's crazy. When you actually know, now you know, right? When you know better, you do better. So now that you know this, go watch TikTok and Instagram, watch how many women are spraying butane. Just go look at the back of the can. Look at any aerosol product you have in your bathroom. Go look at the back of the can. It'll say butane as the first ingredient. That's the propellant. It's so bad. Okay. Isobutane, propane, it's all in there. There's it's VOCs and ultrafine particles that are being inhaled into your body and going directly into your respiratory system, which means it's going directly into your blood and directly into your brain, especially if it's up here. Paraffin candles, I already mentioned. Incense is terrible. Incense is so toxic, you guys. It's bad stuff. As far as your appliances go, gas is actually the most, gas. I love gas stoves, tops. I love gas, actually. I love natural gas. But gas fireplaces, the ventless ones in particular and wood burning. Anybody burning wood in their home is going to be having a ton of particulate matter in their home that they're inhaling. And it's bad. I mean, these things disrupt thyroid. They disrupt your hormones. Go listen to the last episode. Basically, the air pollution in the air that we're breathing in is throwing women into early